Meta just got hit with a $567 million fine for not protecting children. That is a lot of money. Let us find out what happened. Wait, so they have to pay money because kids use their app? Did the judge think Meta was running a babysitting service?
Not exactly. A judge in New Mexico has ruled that Meta is a public nuisance. That is a legal term. It means the company caused harm to the public, and now it has to pay to fix that harm.
A public nuisance? Like when someone leaves garbage in the park. But Meta is not a pile of trash.
The judge used that word on purpose. He compared Meta to a factory. A factory makes a product, but it also makes pollution. The judge said Meta makes advertising and content, but the pollution is the harm to children.
Oh, so Meta needs to clean up the smoke coming from its building? Should they install better filters?
It is a metaphor, Munmun. He is saying that just like a factory has to pay for the damage its pollution causes, Meta has to pay for the damage it caused to children on its platforms.
Ah. So Meta needs to apologize. That makes sense.
More than that, the judge ordered Meta to create a fund with this money. Most of it, about $420 million, will pay for treatment. That means therapy, counseling, medical help for children who were hurt. Go toward training teachers, doctors, and counselors on how to spot and treat harm from social media.
So the money goes directly to help kids? I thought fines just went to the government.
Usually they do. But this is different. The judge said Meta caused a specific harm, so the money must go to fix that harm. It is like saying the factory must clean up its own pollution.
But wait. This is the biggest fine ever against Meta. Why now? Did they just break their phone?
No. This fine is the result of lawsuits from parents and the government. They said Meta knew its platforms were addictive and unsafe for children, but did not warn anyone or fix the problem.
Addictive? Like candy? Should Meta be sold next to cigarettes with a warning label?
In a way, yes. The platforms are designed to keep people coming back. They use likes, notifications, and recommendations to hook users. Children are especially vulnerable to this design.
So they got fined because the app is too good at making people want to use it? That is backwards. That is like fining a restaurant for making delicious food.
Munmun, are you listening to me at all? The harm is not the addiction. The harm is what happens because of the addiction. Children spend hours on Meta platforms. They are exposed to sexual exploitation. Predators use the apps to contact them. Mental health gets worse. Sleep disappears. That is the pollution. The judge ordered Meta to change how the app works. No more recommendations between adults and children. Adults cannot message minors.
So adults have to stay out of children's messages. Like a rope around a playground?
Exactly. The judge also said Meta must ban nudity from accounts under 18, enforce strict rules on adult users who exploit children, and turn off notifications at night and during school. And there is a limit. Young users cannot spend more than 90 hours per month on Instagram and Facebook combined. That is roughly 3 hours a day.
Oh. So the court is not just taking money. It is also making Meta change the way the app works. That is, actually pretty serious.
Yes. And this is just New Mexico. Meta is facing thousands of lawsuits across the US. In California, the company already lost another major case about addictive design. And next week, nearly 36 state governments are filing a new lawsuit.
So Meta is basically in trouble everywhere in America. But they made $61 billion this year, right? Is $567 million even a problem?
For Meta, no. One analyst said the fine is a drop in the ocean. But the point is not the money. The point is that courts are now saying tech companies have to protect children, or face consequences. This ruling is spreading. The UK and EU are now demanding the same safety measures Meta is implementing here.
So now America, Europe, and everyone else are all saying the same thing to Meta at the same time. That is like when your parents, your teacher, and your boss all tell you to clean your room.
That is exactly right. And Meta responded by saying they disagree with the ruling and will appeal. They also said they work hard to keep people safe and have been transparent about the challenges.
So Meta is saying they are not the ones to blame? That someone else made kids feel bad?
Meta is arguing that the judge did not understand the business, or that the harms were too hard for any company to prevent. That is the different perspective. Let me explain how this looks depending on where you sit. If you are a parent, you see a company that exposed your child to harm. If you are an investor in Meta, you see a company losing money to lawsuits. If you work for Meta in safety, you might see a ruling that finally gives you the power to shut down bad actors. If you are a teenager, you might see a court that finally takes your well-being seriously.
So the same event is good news for some people and bad news for others. That is just how life works, right?
Yes. And it helps to understand those different perspectives before you decide what you think. Now, this has happened before in history. Do you know about the pollution lawsuits against cigarette companies?
Cigarettes? I thought this was about phones and apps. Are you telling me they are the same?
In terms of the legal pattern, yes. For decades, cigarette makers knew smoking caused cancer. They made products that were addictive. They did not warn the public. Eventually, courts said they had to pay for the damage.
Oh. So the court is treating Meta like it treated cigarette companies. They are saying if you know your product is harmful, you have to tell people and fix it.
Exactly. The judge called it a public nuisance, just like they called cigarette pollution a public nuisance. The rule is the same. You cause harm, you pay to fix it. This matters for ordinary people because now platforms know that harmful design can be expensive. If Meta must change how it works in New Mexico, and the UK is demanding the same, the company might change globally.
So kids everywhere might get safer apps because a judge in one state said so? That is surprising.
It is. But it also means that if you are a parent, you should understand what these rules are, so you can ask for the same protection from other apps and other companies. This is how change starts.
I see. So this is not really about the money. It is about rules. It is about who gets to decide how apps are made.
Yes. For years, Meta decided that engagement mattered most. The apps were built to hook users and keep them online. Now courts and governments are saying that child safety matters more than engagement. That is the real change. Companies build what they are allowed to build. Rules change what is allowed. This fine is a signal that the rules are changing.
So next time I see a fine against a tech company, I should ask what rules changed, not just how much money they paid.
Exactly. Money is easy to understand. Rules are harder. But rules are what actually change how people and companies behave. That is the story behind every headline like this.
I think I get it now. This is not about punishing Meta. It is about protecting kids by changing how the company has to work.
Yes. And that is something that took years. Parents had to notice. Researchers had to study it. Lawyers had to build cases. A judge had to listen. Now the system has changed. That is how democracy works.
So anyone who cares can push for change. You do not have to be powerful. You just have to keep asking until someone listens.
That is the deepest lesson here. A $567 million fine sounds huge. But the real power is that a person can now say to their government, I want these protections for my child, just like that New Mexico judge said.
You know, I think what this really shows is that our world is not fixed. The things we think are just how things are, they can change. Someone decided Meta was not safe enough. So they made Meta change. And that power, the power to make something different, that belongs to us, if we pay attention and care. So how is this story being told where you live? I really want to know. Tell me in the comments which country you are watching from, and what your news is saying. If you learned something today, subscribe. Sensei says it helps. I still do not understand how.